Blasphemous is an indie title created by the indie developers over there at the Game Kitchen. It was published through Team 17 Digital, and just like many other indie games, this started off as a Kickstarter campaign. And with their backing, the amount of money accumulated in funds went towards the development of what we have today. On September 10, 2019, this game was released, and since this game was one of the ones that was heavily on my radar, I quickly bought this game. Now if you don't know by now, I like rocking out with the PS4 version, so let's get into it.
Because it is my guilt, I claim you grievous miracle. Make my chest hurt with regret. Forge your punishment and nail it deep. Shape my guilt once again.
The story of Blasphemous is one that is cryptic, and to be honest, I don't fully grasp the whole entire story, nor do I understand the specific details. But the general overview is that people live in this land known as Custodia. In this land, the people are not too happy to say the least. That is because of this entity known as the Miracle, pretty much this world's god. You see, in this world, the Miracle is seen as an entity that creates and punishes. Actually, this being is fully into punishment to its inhabitants who ask for it, either out of guilt for committing bad acts, some for just being born, and others, well, probably because they like it with their sadistic fetishes. Who knows? Things like grace and mercy is almost in existence in this world. So it's the task of the penitent one, the cat that you play as, to set forward and rid this land of its grim fate. Well, at least for this moment in time before something inevitably occurs to other people may screw up and be back into this living hell. If you want a full understanding of Blasphemous story and lore, I recommend checking out this YouTube channel known as Small Town. This person does an in-depth analysis on various aspects and lore of the game. To make more sense of what this game story is, I would recommend looking at his vids. The link to his channel will be in the description below. The presentation of Blasphemous depicts a bleak and grim world that already looks like the aftermath of some otherworldly apocalypse that popped off. This game possesses a type of scenery that looks like it was lifted from the Divine Comedy, which is heavily influenced through the depiction of religious art pushed so obviously on the player. For example, this area right here reminded me of the 9th level of hell from Dante's Inferno. If you're unfamiliar with the literature, Dante's Inferno talks about a guy who travels through the 9 levels of hell. According to that book, the 9th level of hell is for the sin of treachery where Lucifer lives. Instead of fire and brimstone like a lot of media may describe hell to be, this writing portrays this level of hell as souls of sinners being fully conscious, trapped and frozen within ice that never melts for all of eternity as punishment. According to the Inferno, some lay stretched out, others are fixed in place upright. Some on their heads, some on their souls, another like a bow, bends foot to face. In other words, a lot of souls were going to be frozen in strange uncomfortable positions, forever feeling the disturbing touch of ice in the land where it's always engulfed in darkness. When you look at this iteration of hell, it serves as a representation of being alone, never feeling the warmth of being loved, or being connected to anyone, let alone being acknowledged. And we all know what that can lead to, even if you're not dead. I may be wrong, but it's just my opinion what this imagery reminded me of. But anyway, back to the presentation. This game looks amazing. There are a lot of things to admire about the level of detail that was placed into how disturbing and how beautiful this game looks. Bosses and inhuman-like creatures you encounter looks grotesque. It looks like it was birthed from somebody's twisted imagination on the Bible's Book of Revelations. Speaking of the Bible, some of the art that influenced Blasphemous was based off of the pieces of art portraying the Spanish Inquisition. Maybe this could explain the enemies with random wheels, while people are burning at stakes, while the main character has a cone in his head with thorns wrapped around it making it look like a screw. And lastly, the thorns itself that may be a symbol for the one and only man that in Christianity died for their sins. You know, the one and only Jesus Christ himself. The landscapes and levels you travel across looks engrossing with its pixelated art design. Each section you traverse across are all diverse and possesses various tones to their own themes. When you are engaged in combat, the sequences of witnessing the decapitation and violent killings is of top quality. Every now and then a cutscene happens where you'll witness the hand-drawn art style. It may not be the most extravagant, but the cutscenes do enough to convey what is happening. Needless to say, this game is not for children, and the Nightmare's visual convey that enough. How they can make pixels form such disturbing images is nothing less of astonishing. Music for Blasphemous was done by Carlos Voila, a music composer who does music for indie games and film. He has his own website and business. From the work that he's done with this game, I advise anyone who develop indie games or films to check him out if you need quality music for your projects. Anyway, not only did Carlos do the original soundtrack, but also he did the original soundtrack for the game The Last Door, which is the game that preceded Blasphemous and was also created by the Game Kitchen. I will get to reviewing that game in the future. But how is the music? The music is perfect for the tone of the game, dark and foreboding. Majority of the songs on the project has the melody being on the forefront and the percussion taking a back seat. If you take a look at the titles on each song, you'll notice the titles are in Spanish, and you can hear it in the music from where the influence is present. Two of my favorite tracks on the soundtrack are Y Yo Fuego Te Daré, which is Spanish for "and I will give you fire," and Entregarás tu rostro a la señora, which is Spanish for "you will deliver your face to the lady." These songs, just like many others, have the strumming of the Spanish acoustic guitar followed by the hunting vocals, in which I love. You can check out the soundtrack for yourself. The links on where you can get the music will be in the description below. The sound design in this game is atmospheric, to put it simply. Everything from the clashing of metal coming from your blade, the smashing of a heavy item meeting the ground, the sound of carnage due to you either ripping off or chopping off limbs, and even spells. It all sounds great and full. I cannot forget one of the important aspects of this game, and that's the voice acting. At times it can sound a bit Lord of the Ringish, if that makes sense.
The cradle of affliction is what you seek. This can be found in the mother of mothers of the churches.
But all in all, this game sounds like how it looks. Amazing. Blasphemous is a 2D Metroidvania-like game where you would do what you would expect from a game in this type of genre, which is, but not limited to, traversing across various terrains by utilizing skills to maneuver through platforming mechanics. Find items which will help your character by either increasing your character stats or temporarily assisting you in a time of need. Defeating many types of enemies with the abilities you acquired or gained, grinding, and lastly backtracking. Majority of these tropes can be found while playing Blasphemous, however, it's how these familiar tropes are executed that differentiates one Metroidvania game from another. Now within saying that, let me explain a few things about how this game is played. The Penitent One, which is the main character that you play as, has the ability to slide, jump, and has this sword called the Mea Culpa that you will be utilizing to cut down your enemies and latch on the walls. You can also use this sword to parry incoming attacks when timed just right and retaliate with a heavy attack when prompted. If you attack your enemies, sometimes they may glow red, meaning they are on a last little inkling of health and you get to finish them off with a gruesome end. Think of Mortal Kombat when your opponent is in a daze before you perform your fatality, except in Blasphemous is with one button. Once you get some distance in the game, you have the ability to do special attacks called prayers. How many times you can pull off these attacks is dictated by the fervor you gain. You gain fervor landing attacks or killing your enemies. This is represented by the blue bar located up under your health bar. You also will attain something called Tears of Atonement, which will be important to you. You are granted with a map to use to know where you are and know where you're going. Your map will expand as you explore new areas, and symbols will be placed for particular areas that you will need to keep in mind. Here are some of those areas. Predians. Predians are areas that you will find to pray. This renews your flash, your health, and also saves your current game progression. This is where you'll be brought back to life when you die. You can also equip items here too. Next are Confessors. Confessors are places for where you'll be able to absolve your guilt. You see, in this game, when you die, your fervor becomes more and more limited based on how many times you die. After death, you will accumulate guilt, which is shown by these thorns. These thorns will make the cap on how much fervor you can use for your prayers to become smaller and smaller. There are two ways you can absolve your guilt, and that is either by paying money here at this area or transversing back to the area you died to recover what you lost. It's kinda like Hollow Knight. My only hope is if you die, it's not an area that's far away because it's gonna be a long journey back. To make sure this doesn't happen, stop by prettying whenever possible, to make it easier on yourself. Next are the Chapels of Travel. Chapels of Travel is a game where you are further into the game. Once you unlock this room, it gives you the ability to fast travel to other areas of greater distance. The next area is known as knots. Once you collect these items known as knots, you can come here to expand your rosary. Lastly is the Mea Culpa altar. This is where you will upgrade your sword and abilities here by collecting the Tears of Atonement, which is this game's form of Tinder. Once you have attained enough Tears of Atonement, you'll be able to purchase upgrades that would unlock a lot of nice and useful techniques that would drastically increase your chance of not dying. As much, that is. Even though these places can be found, there are also hidden areas that would not be on your map, such as areas used for flasks to be refilled or added to your character so you can have the opportunity to heal more. You see, one of the main things that you will most certainly need are these glass flasks filled with blood. They are essentially healing items used to recover your health. There will be other hidden areas that you will find throughout your travels, such as places that can increase your overall health, places that can increase your overall favor, and also shots that are hidden through a hole in the wall. As far as items go, this game has a lot of them which are broken down into particular categories. Here are what they are and some of their functions. First up are the Mea Culpa hearts. Mea Culpa hearts are items that give perks when added, such as gaining more Tears of Atonement or increasing your strength under certain conditions. Next are rosary beads. For the most part, they do the same thing. Next are quest items, which are pretty much items that can be used at certain areas, such as your empty flash bottles and rosary knots, along with items that can be very important to unlocking areas. Relics are important as well. Some can reveal certain things to the player that they may not have known and protect the character from certain environmental dangers when equipped. Prayers, as I said, are those special attacks. There are many of them that serve more of an offensive and some in defensive purposes. Some of these items can only be equipped at altars only. Lastly are these collectibles that can be found throughout the world. These really don't serve a purpose but to provide some heavy lore like the rest of the items. Now that I think about it, the only purpose that they serve is to unlock a skin when placed at a specific location. Here are some of my critiques, warnings, and suggestions that could help you along the way. The first one is, out of everything that can kill you, platforming may be the top reason that you die. Sometimes jumping onto ledges can feel a bit stiff, along with the character feeling a bit weighted. This can sometimes cause the player to make a miscalculation in distance, resulting in death. The next one is the issue of knockback. Knockback is kinda not a big thing in this game when it comes to certain enemies, but knockoffs are definitely present and accounted for. For the unaware, knockback is when you as the player get hit by an enemy, resulting in the player being frozen in the frame, unable to quickly regain control until returning to a stable ground level. Actually, a good example of this can be found within the classic Castlevania games, more notably due to these Medusa heads. When you use your sword to latch on the walls, an enemy can knock you down with just one hit, and it's bye-bye from there. This really came to the forefront with facing off this boss, or should I say bosses. In this fight, latching onto the wall is one of the main ways to stay alive. But this enemy has an attack that randomly appears in areas suddenly that can cause you to die. And if you're on the wall, the moment it hits you, goodbye. Next, there is a lady that will ask if you need any assistance before boss battles. Now, to avoid spoilers, do not spam her in your early bosses. Take my word for it, and trust me on this one. The next one is obviously out of all Metroidvania games, which is to explore every inch of the map and cover as much territory as you can. Pick up as many items as you can as well. Hold on to the items and keep some of them equipped, so you don't miss out on secret passageways. When you find shops, try to do your best to buy everything you see there. Some items at these shops would be very imperative if you're thinking about fully completing this game. For example, there is a key that unlocks a segment that is very important. If you are the type of gamer that is looking for a full completion or the best ending in this game, spoilers, this is something that you cannot pass up on. Next advice I give you is not to be so antisocial. Talk and interact with people and objects you run into. When I said to collect all the items that you possibly can, you may unknowingly have an item that an NPC may be in need of. This will grant you some nice rewards. And this is definitely one I think you should pay attention to. And that is being aware of your surroundings when doing your prayer attacks and also when you're healing yourself. Unfortunately, in Blasphemous, the animations the penitent one does in this game behaves as if you have all the time in the world. It's sort of slow, and in some battles your enemy can take the opportunity to take advantage of the short window of time to punish you. Now, with everything in its full package, the question is this game any good? My response is yes. With what I've experienced, I would give this game a 9 out of 10. It's very ambitious and I had a good time with it. If you like Metroidvania games, I would consider putting this game right among them. There may be some minor bugs that you'll come in contact with, but it's not game breaking, and there's a patch that is soon to be released to fix that. The price tag of this game is $25 and is available for PlayStation 4, Steam, Nintendo Switch, and also the Xbox One. I recommend checking this game out for yourself.